Hello and welcome back to How to Connect with Humans. This is series 6. It's series 6. Can you believe that?
Where's that time gone?
I don't
Where
know.
has that
I
time
don't
gone?
know. It's over a year now since we started our first episode. And we are going to start series 6, episode 1, with one of my favorite people around the principles. And I have told you this so many times. Like, I told Barb. So Barb Patterson is here with us today. And I had one of my first recordings was I had 2 recordings of Seed that were Sydney Banks that were short. And I had one of Barb Patterson on, I think it was a CD, but it could have been a tape, to be honest. I think it was a CD actually. Like it wasn't like that long ago. It was, let's say, 8 years ago or something, or 7 years ago. And so I listened to that again and again and again. So Barb was talking to me, and she was my friend. She didn't know, but so nearly every day. And then I would change the car, and then she will move into the next car. And then one day, I saw Barb and I thought, I'm gonna go and say hello. And Barbie and Barb, she was like, oh, hello, it's so lovely to meet you. And she's so lovely. And then I said, well, you've been in my car going around England for a long time. I said, well, that's great, Thank you for taking me around. So and from them on, you and me, we have had hacks and hacks with Barb, even if it is like this. So with real business, real lives, the amazing, wonderful Barbara Patterson is here with us today. Thank you so much for starting this series.
Yeah, thank you. What a sweet, lovely introduction. And I absolutely remember meeting you for the first time, and your energy and enthusiasm and love and exuberance. And so when you reached out and invited me here, how could I say anything but yes? So thank you for having me.
Oh, it's such a pleasure. So you just came back from holiday.
Yep.
Yeah.
I was going to stay another 2 weeks. I said, no. I'm here. So, in a way, we like the title because it's the title of one of your podcasts, which is fantastic. And we are going to put the link underneath so people can go and listen to them. Are fantastic. And one of the things, Barb, that usually we hear, and that it's also for us a bit of a, like, something we're a bit blind about, is, can you share the principles? Can you teach the principles, work around this, and earn money, have a company, and do it without, I don't know, being a horrible person that is sort of taking money away from lovely people? I'm gonna say it as it feels sometimes, how people say, like, well, you can't charge for teaching the principles, you can't share, and you're an amazing businesswoman. So I think this is going to be very helpful for a lot of people.
Yeah. Yeah, I can appreciate what you're saying. And it is, I know a lot of people are like me that got really personally impacted by this understanding, and want to share it with people, just naturally want to share it, and then there are some people who want to do that as a life, as a career, or as a way to fund their lives as well. And it's interesting because when I first came across this, I was having such personal impact. It was impacting. I was having personal realizations, and in a way, they felt a little elusive. But I come from a tradition and a career, and all my life really being in this kind of, how do we transform? How do we bring our best self to life and to work and to our expression and whatever we want to do? And, my career had taken a very crooked path in a lot of different directions, but ultimately always in, whether it was personal development, leadership development, organizational development, all around transformation, change, engagement. And when I first came across this, I started to see that I had it very complex in my mind how change happened. It was really complex. I was up for the challenge. I always like to say, like I was into it, but it was very complex and it required a lot, from addressing our past to addressing our issues to looking at our subconscious to looking at thoughts to looking at behaviors, personality. It was like this very complex way at which how do we bring our best self to something? How do we transform? How do we live a fulfilled life? And I had ideas about purpose, that you had to identify your purpose or you would never be happy or live your life happy, a good life. So I just had all these things that were on my mind and that looked like needed to be resolved in order to have a good life and a good business. And as enthusiastic as I was for it, I was also confused a lot at times because I would notice that certain areas that I really cared about were hard and I couldn't really seem to get my act together in those areas, right? I seemed to struggle and when I struggled, it looked like I was the problem, whether it was my personality, my past, my commitment level, my discipline, like whatever it might be, it looked like I was the problem. And when I worked in organizations, it wasn't very different. It looked like, something needed fixing before anything could really be fulfilled fully. And when I started to, through Michael Neal originally, be introduced to this, it started to put the idea that fixing was the way through, like to question. It started to, in a really nice way, I started to see, well, how can we be whole and complete and have this innate kind of well-being, then also say, but we need fixing. Like all of a sudden, those two ideas weren't computing in my mind any longer, even though I have a huge habit of looking at what needs fixing in myself and my clients and in businesses, like I was trained. I have a really good eye for what needs fixing. And yet there was something really in me deeply that resonated to the truth of what if that's an illusion? What if the idea that we need to fix ourselves is actually the misunderstanding? And that beyond thought, beyond personality, beyond habits, beyond behaviors, we have this resourceful innate nature, which people call the innate well-being, or I often refer to it as like this well of being, this true self, this nature. Like, if that's true, that all of us as humans have that within, what are the implications of that? What does that mean for us as human beings? What does that mean for us in relationship? What does that mean for us in our happiness? What does that mean for us in our work? And I had always believed we were a part of something bigger, right? And I had done a lot of different spiritual things and I had a curiosity about it all. But in a way, again, it was complex, it was separate. And what this understanding began to do was simplify things for me in a really helpful way. And so when I started to question all the ways I thought I needed to be improved and all the ways other people, needed to be improved, and I started to get more curious about this sort of deeper nature within us and the fact that it's a part of who we are along with our humanity, right? Both. We are both this kind of spiritual essence and this human essence. We're spiritual nature and human nature, but it's integrated. It's not separate. It's integrated. And I'd never really seen it that simply. And so all of a sudden, when I would see like, oh, I'm thinking I need to improve myself again. I'm on that path again. I'm thinking, I could be better if life would be better if those things began to become less compelling in my mind. And as a result, I started to feel more hopeful for the first time in a long time. Not that I wasn't aware that I was hopeless, but in hindsight, I realized I had given up hope in a few areas of my life, whether it was relationship or my purpose, trying to find that thing out forever. It's like I had really sort of been resigned in life in a number of ways. And while I had a good life and I was a glass half full and, good relationships, there were definite areas in my life where I felt stuck and resigned. So when I began to start to naturally just feel more hopeful, when I considered all of who we are, I'd been obsessed with the human part, trying to change it, tweak it, improve it, get it where it needed to be so I could be happy and do what I'm meant to do in this life, like all of that. And I dabbled in the spiritual nature of life, and it was cool and kind of interesting, but it wasn't integrated. And so when I began to get more curious about the integration of it, the both and of who we are, that we are both the spiritual and the human, then all of a sudden I started to see like, and also this understanding points us to an understanding of the mind, right? And how thought is shaping our moment to moment experience, and seeing the interplay of all of that together, I began to see the role that thought had on who I thought I was, what I thought I was capable of, what I thought was possible. So as all that got loosened and less like solid in me, like, I really thought I knew myself. I thought I knew who I was and what was possible and what I was up against. And when I got more like open about maybe there's more I don't know here, then naturally what began to happen was I started to tap into some of those places where before I'd been searching for. So for example, it's like all of a sudden I found myself putting myself in situations where I was in over my head a lot more, just naturally, because the understanding showed me I could handle it, that we're designed to rise to the occasion, that we'll get helpful thinking in the moment. So I realized I don't need to figure it all out before I act. I can actually just engage in life and I'll get wisdom and insight along the way, right? Where before I spent a lot of time working it out, thinking that if I thought about it enough, it would guarantee a certain outcome. If I thought about it enough, it would guarantee a smoother ride. I'd get it right, and then realizing that's all just made up, and the illusion is control. The illusion is that we know, like the truth is we're in the unknown all the time, and we're designed for it. We are equipped and designed to handle the unknown, to be in over our heads, to respond to life in the moment. So getting more and more comfortable stepping and engaging in my life without all the boxes checked, what started to happen was I was naturally experiencing new things, tapping into new potential because I wasn't locked into who I thought I was. And naturally, my experience of myself broadened. I started to see like, oh, I want to grow a business, but I'm so stuck in my head thinking about how to grow a business that I'm not engaging in any action. So again, when I got more comfortable in just engaging in conversations without having to have it figured out, lo and behold, you'd find a momentum. I'd get inspired about an idea, and rather than working it to death in my mind and killing all inspiration about it, I would follow the nudge and I'd take the first step without knowing what the next one would be. And as a result, a momentum would start to occur, a natural momentum. And pretty soon things have life. Pretty soon my business is growing. Pretty soon I'm learning along the way. And it's so much more fun to be in it rather than thinking about it. Like that was a huge realization for me. And I wasn't taking myself so seriously, like, because before I was a project, right? I had to watch out for my weaknesses and my lack of discipline and, all those things. I had to manage myself. And again, how surprising to discover, the less I manage myself, the more I find flow. The less I manage myself, the more I experience my own resiliency. And this is for everyone. The less we try and control things, the more we realize how great we handle it all. We surprise ourselves over and over. And so at first, when all this was happening personally, just to come back to what you were saying, it looked to me like, oh, I can do this in my one-on-one coaching. I can do that. But it didn't look like a business conversation to me at first. And I think that's because I was just having such personal insights that I hadn't quite made the connection. But when I started to explore what I said, the integrated piece of how our minds are designed to give us creative ideas, how we are resilient, we rise to the occasion all the time. We've been doing it our whole lives, that you start to see that we bounce back. Right? We may not like the ride, but we bounce back. I just started to see all this. And then naturally, what began to happen was I started to see how relevant it was in business. In a very simple way, I remembered the first time I got promoted and they moved me to a new city. It was a big job, a big raise. I was super excited. I was still kind of young. And like the night before having to go into the new office, I sort of had this moment and called my sister. I'm like, what am I doing? I don't know what I'm doing. Oh my God. What have they done? And she just reminded me, she's like, oh, you're just having a moment. Like, just everything you did to get you here. Like, you're fine. You're fine. And after that, I realized everyone that gets promotion for the most part hasn't done the job they're getting promoted to. Right? Like in business, they're being promoted to something. They've demonstrated some talent, but nobody knows that job, right? Until you do it. And I realized like, we just take it for granted that you'll step into a job and you'll figure it out. You may have some nerves about it, but you'll figure it out. And I started to see like, oh yeah, that's the innate resilience within us. That's the capability, the creative potential of our minds at play. That's an example of it. Helps you figure out how to find your way. You get into a conversation with a stranger. That's the innate creative intelligence of our mind, giving you something to say, a direction to go. I started to see the everyday practical nature of this. I saw like, oh yeah, where does creative ideas come from? Right? Like companies are having to be innovative all the time. And the other thing I really saw clearly was in a distorted mind, we aren't our best. So a mind that's sped up, that's stressed, that's overthinking, that is worried about outcome, we just don't do our best. Well, I know from my own experience of being an executive inside a corporate a company, a large global company, there is a total misunderstanding around that because it looks like you need to do all those things to be successful. Handling stress looks like a badge of honor versus understanding stress, right? Being busy, like another badge of honor versus understanding there's downside to being busy, lots of downside. That people didn't know that there was an opportunity to move through business in your life, in your own business or working inside of a company with more freedom of mind, with more peace of mind, with more resilience, and do really well. See, people think the edge and the stress and the push and the grit and the drive are the reason they do well. I did. But when you begin to get an understanding of the mind and you see our deeper capability, this deeper nature together, you start to realize like, oh, none of that. Like all humans, we all perform so much better when we're comfortable in our skin than when we're uptight. All of us perform better and have more rapport and connection and are better listeners when we're in the present versus following our line of thought in the moment, right? All of us like rapport and connection coming from our ability to be present to someone and to really listen versus tracking our own head. Like those universal things, which are true for all humans, are relevant and valuable, whether you're talking about parenting, whether you're talking about work, whether you're talking about relationships. You know, there's nowhere that an understanding of the mind and your deeper nature won't support what you're up to. And so that's when I started to see the changes that were happening in me and the way I did my own business, as well as like how helpful it would be no matter what you're up to. And I saw the ordinary and the practical. That gave me the confidence. When I was only looking at like the big, which is amazing, and the profound, it looked like something special and hard to talk about or to share, you know. But then again, when I started to see like, oh, it's so ordinary and everyday, like we're designed to be creative, you know, we're designed to connect, we're designed to figure things out, we're designed to rest as well as go fast, you know, like you just start to see all of it. And then in that way, it became really clear to me that that was the place I wanted to hang out in. You know, I've done a lot of work with a lot of different, like whether it's schools or families or teens and, you know, volunteer things. I've done a lot of it, but I love the conversation of this understanding and whatever you're up to in life. I love that conversation because I think it's been so helpful for me. It's been so meaningful for me. And I think there's so much misunderstanding about what it takes to do well, and to help people disrupt that and see that differently. Like, what a gift. What a gift.
That's awesome. One of the things that for me was it was key for me to have that recording that just happened to be there. And I started my journey with Ian Watson as my teacher, and as you say, it was confusing. It was like I was coming from years and years of psychotherapy, and you know, other and fixing this and fixing that, and it was confusing. I was lost. I would open the missing link from Sydney Banks, and it was like it could have been written in Chinese. I couldn't understand a word of what he was saying there. I would listen to Sydney Banks and I would get a feeling, but I couldn't quite get what he was saying. And then I would see other people and think, well, George Pransky and Linda are doing well because obviously, you know, they have this big company and they're super, that's why they're doing well. That has nothing to do with me or, you know, with us, or, you know, it's just like, that's what happens to people that are powerful and successful, and that's not me. And then what happened was that power of presence that Barb you have when you, well, everybody, but you particularly have, and and Barb was in that one asked to talk about just the guy next door, just a simple person, just that. So you will say things, and I was like, oh, yeah, me too, yeah, that I understand. And you were saying things like, well, I have this thing about thinking about the future, but it's like I'm here and I'm thinking about lunch already, or dinner already, aren't you? Like, it was so relatable. And that's one of the things I find when you talk, that you could be like this super business person, you know, that but with you, I just feel like, oh, I feel, yeah, I can do that. I can follow breadcrumbs when something looks like well, I could go there. It doesn't look like, oh, build a big business. It's just like, oh, let's just. So that for me has been, it has changed my life, and it's changed the past year during quarantine. I heard so many times, like, you in my head, your voice is there. So, you don't live in my car only, you also live here now. So
I don't know if I should apologize for that or.
It's a good thing. It's a good. You always say nice things to me. I don't always say nice things to me, but like, you don't have to make an impact.
Yeah.
You don't have to prepare, and just go be yourself, and that's enough. Yeah, sorry.
No, that's fine. I think what I've heard both of you say is it's the simplicity. As soon as you build something up, and I'm not saying that you shouldn't build, certain things up, but when you build up things that, you have got no control over, that's when you kind of start feeling the agitation or the anxiety of doing something. So when you kind of just let go, the simplicity comes in and it will kind of guide you.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
I think for me, I've always kind of believed that somebody's kind of controlling me, in a sense of I'm not in control of myself. So I don't know what I'm going to do tomorrow or the next day, or I can plan it. But, somebody somewhere on a higher level than me has got my back. And for me, it's just letting that be and letting that kind of just flow.
Yeah, that's nice. I love what you're both saying. And, it's like that. I think I got interested a few years ago, like, is anything extra ever required than being ourselves in any moment? And you can see that, especially in different environments where it looks like more is necessary, like I have to be professional Barb. I've got to, I'm going into this setting, it's business Barb. In this setting, it's, teacher Barb. Or, you just start to realize, like, you think something extra. I got to show credibility here. I have to show, I've got to show I'm nice here. Like, we kind of like do these add-ons at times, like these persona or this kind of image or this thing we have to do. Like, I got to be on is another thing you hear a lot, right? And so I got really curious, like, what if nothing extra is ever required? Like, it really is, we can be completely who we are in any moment, no matter the situation. And I don't think we realize how much we hold on our minds about what's required in any moment, whether it's a tough conversation with somebody we love or a boss, whether it's telling, leading a team or it's leading a family, whether it's, trying a new skill for the first time. There's, I think, this misunderstanding that we got to bring extra to it, so we start holding these things like, I got to be this way here, I got to show this. And all of that adds more distortion to the signal in a way. All of that adds more noise to what's going on to our inside ourselves at time. And so when you start to see, like, oh no, like, we're made for it, we're designed for whatever we're up to, whatever's on our plate, what if we're designed for it? And you start to see that you can put your certainty in that something will occur to you. You can put your certainty in your desire to want to connect. You can put your confidence in the knowing that you'll find your way in a conversation. You know, you start to see, it's like I was preparing to have a really tough conversation. And this is when I first started working with Michael. And I was quitting my job and leaving Paris. And I really liked my boss and the company. And I wasn't leaving for a problem. I was leaving to just start my own thing. And I was rehearsing that thing. Oh, I'm embarrassed to really tell you. If they could calculate, I'm sure I would just be appalled at how much I thought about this conversation before I had it, right? And so I was on a call with Michael and I'm sharing with him, you know, I could say this and then I could say this, or I could say this. And I'm expecting him to like go with B. You know what I mean? Like that's what I'm kind of thinking he's going to tell me. And what he said to me was, well, you know what is striking to me is how much you don't trust that you'll have what you need in the moment. And I was like, what? I mean, it was just such the opposite of what I was expecting. It like took me a moment, like, wait a minute, back up. And I heard, and he's like, yeah, that isn't the fact that you have, you know, you care for this person, that you care for your job, that you have a good rapport, and that you're making a decision that is in, you know, your best interest. Like, isn't that enough to go on in the moment? And I really saw it. I saw it. And sure enough, I had that conversation. And some of the things I thought if I prepped, I would avoid, which was I didn't want him to take it personally. I didn't want him to be mad at me, you know, like I was trying to write all of that. Well, he took it personally and he was a little irritated, right? But what I discovered was I could handle that. We found our way. I could stay centered. I could stay connected. I could stay listening. And we found our way to where eventually, when I left, I'm not exaggerating when I say he and the CEO and the people that I had around me were like rooting for me. You know, it took us a little while to get there. It took a couple conversations, but it wasn't what came out of my mouth. It was where I was coming from inside myself. And I think that's what we see. We start to see like, oh yeah, we can handle what's on our plate. We can handle being in the unknown, like I said before. We can handle tough conversations. We're like designed for it. We're made for it. We can handle change. We can handle tough life situations. We can't predict any of it. We can't control any of it, but we can put our confidence and our certainty in our ability to figure it out and our ability to rise. I don't mean it that intellectually. I mean that we step in, we engage, and we find our way. You know, we come back and we fall in remembrance of that place within, that well of being, you know, and we find our way. We get ideas. Our minds give us ideas, ways to move forward. We slow down, we listen more deeply. All of that is really at the core of our ability to thrive in life. We think it's been, you know, all of our skills, our competencies, our education, you know, all of those things. But really, when you come down to it and you put it in its, you know, as Wayne was saying, in its most simplest form, you realize, oh no, it's what we come already with. Our ability to connect, to listen, to slow down, to try and understand one another, to feel connected, to build rapport. Like all of that, when we come from that place inside of ourselves, the fruit that comes from that is amazing. And so you come back to this idea of what if I just show up to everything with that, like with connected, aligned with that. You know, do I need then to be business Barb in a business setting? You know, like I don't even know what that is, but you know, obviously I would walk into certain settings and think, okay, now this is what's got it. You know, just these imaginary things, right? Oh, I this really matters to me, so I've got to be intense. And then now, when you have an understanding of the mind, you realize how kind of crazy that is. The last thing you want to be is intense. Right? Because we do so well in a freer, more open, present mind. We do so well, but I didn't know that. I thought it was all my conjuring and my thinking and my planning and my education, and I thought it was all that was the source. And then when you realize, no, that's all been great, but it's not the source. It's not the source of connection. It's not the source of our creativity. It's not the source of doing well. We have that. That's inside. Everyone has it. It by birthright. You're walking around with it. I just had no appreciation of that. I was, it was um, invisible to me. And so by getting more curious about that part, you start to see, oh, maybe I could lay down the ideas I have about who I think I am and who I think I'm not. What if all that is just thoughts and decisions and ideas I had about myself, but not a truth of who I am and what's possible? What would I discover about myself if I got more curious about what I don't know about me than what I do know? I'll just say one other thing is I didn't realize how much I was looking to my past to determine my potential. I was looking behind me to see what I'd done, what I hadn't done, what I've tried and failed at to decide who I was. And really, when you start to see that potential has nothing to do with past, potential is. We swim in that infinite creative potential of life. It funds us, it fuels us. And so that idea that I just kept looking at what I thought I was and felt limitation. Well, when I started to realize there's so much more I don't know about who I am and who this person is and what's possible, then you start to realize, oh, okay, that's where potential is. It's not in what I know, it's in what I don't know. So I would love to hear from all of you, anyone, what questions, what's resonating, what you'd like to add, anything.
So you can unmute yourselves or just raise your hand. So just feel free to do that.
Well, Barb, you have all the answers to the healthcare crisis. It's just getting the word out.
That's right, Lynn. Yeah, say more what you're seeing. I'd love to hear.
Oh, just every word, about that we have already within ourselves what is necessary, and that opening up ourselves to who we are can essentially bring forth our own natural resilience, and that nothing more needs to be added.
Yeah. Beautiful. Yeah.
The current climate in healthcare tends to be speaking about resilience as something to learn, something to do, something to memorize, something to spit back. And it's just, so the nurses are writing about that. And today it's just been so, essentially sad, because they don't understand, in my view, of course, what the definition of resilience is, and they think it's something more to be added, and they're tired of hearing about it.
Yeah.
But I just am cherishing every word, Barb. So beautifully expressed. Thank you.
Yeah, and I think resilience was one of those ones that I saw how it's a part of our inherent nature, because I started looking at my own life where all those times we've had to rise to the occasion, just to say it that way again, where we were thrown in the unknown, where life pulled the rug out from under us, where things didn't go as we'd hoped or expected or planned, and yet we find our way. And it's interesting, because I think most of us get so caught up in, well, it didn't feel good, so we miss the point that we did it. You know, we miss the brilliant miracle of what we've overcome, what we've handled in our life, because yeah, on a feeling level, it wasn't great. So it was learning to get an eye for the miracle behind it and pointing people to that. Like, too, like, I don't have to convince you. Just look at all the ways in your life from a very young age you have learned to bounce back, to recover, to find your way, and in circumstances, and sometimes you came out like Rocky on top, right, and other times you didn't, but take that aside, you still survived, you still you did it. And it's like, I've shared this example a number of times, but I'll share it again here. It's like, I started thinking about my mom, and she raised 7 of us on her own. And when my dad left and we were all really little, she tells a story about how she stayed in bed for a couple of days. And then she had this thought, get out of bed. You have 7 children to raise. Now, my mom that didn't come with further instructions. It was just like, there you go, but she got out of bed. And she didn't know how she was going to be a mother and a father. She didn't know how she was going to make money and feed us. She didn't know how she was going to get through it herself, much less help us. But she did all that. Right. And that story is not rare.
No.
Every single one of us has those stories in our lives. But we've sort of, in the fact that it was uncomfortable or scary or didn't feel great, we've missed the miracle and the place that, like, of pointing to, of like how resilient we are. And that's what I think, when people start to see, oh yeah, I can do that. And it's funny, like, I've worked with, I've been lucky enough to work with people all over the world, and, leaders and business owners and, individuals at all kinds of status and everything. And, when in hindsight, one of the most common things that I hear that's been most helpful to them when they start to talk about what the understanding gave them is the realization that they're okay no matter what. Over and over again, that is the thing that gave them freedom of mind, that allowed them to step into hard situations, that allowed them to not take themselves and their choices so seriously. So they were loosening up and being willing to try more things because they weren't worried about getting it wrong. That ability to know, like, okay, we're okay no matter what. We'll get our stability again. Our stability is inside of us. It's not in life working out the way we need it to. We have evidence of that all over the place, even in the last year and a half. Life didn't work out the way any of us planned. But isn't it interesting to know that even in the midst of that, our stability is within, our peace of mind is within, our resilience is within.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Lynn.
It's a blessing. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you, Lynn.
Who else? What other?
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Sorry, I'm still in bed, so here we are. Yep.
Yeah. Hey, there you go. Yeah.
All right. I it's really wonderful to hear you, because I got you on. There are many words which stood out and make an impact, but the word purpose was one of them, and everything else in a way. The overthinking before a planned, what I put value on kind of meeting. And I live in that, because every time there's a decision to be made, like there's one pending on Monday, probably made up by my own thinking, because I am the one who put the deadline.
Yeah.
And then it's like, I think for the last 3 weeks, every day I must be spending 1.5, 2, 3 hours. What will I do? What will I say? Will I get needs met? Will I have this? What, how, when? What if, and there comes the crucial, what if it doesn't go this, then I'll do that. And it's a way of thinking I've had for years and years. And that's one of the ruminations. And then I come from a background where I was in the business world in Africa, in UK and New York, back to Europe, Paris included. And I've been in Australia for the last 18 years. And somewhere along the line, went through total rock bottoms and everything. And just the revamping, like that source said, I'm going to get you to really look at the unknown, what you've constructed in people pleasing, in the scarcity thinking, in this insecure being and thinking and not knowing. And at some point, I gave myself, or rather something say, give yourself permission to what you might just really like, philosophy or humanistic psychology, like Carl Jung and Adler and Frankl and this and that. And still, I said, yeah, but that's just a hobby. That's just that. And then I did an accredited coaching with a great company here, but even that felt like musical chairs, superficial, 2030. And I'm still here, 2021. I had a shot at the other kind, but it was soul numbing. And somehow, somewhere, I was led to Nicola Bird, who then led me to Dickens, I didn't go anywhere like paid courses or anything, but I did go into the world of the three principles. And as all the angels turned up somewhere or the other in this journey, but I'm still clueless because every day, like, what is your purpose? What are you going to do with your life? How are you going to put paid calling into action? And it's a constant mental whirlwind of, and then it links up with the insecure, the scarcity. So I can see elements what you spoke about, and yet I can't detach from the cluelessness of it. Sorry, that's where I am.
Yeah, no, thank you for sharing that. And if we think about it, Carolina, I did a TEDx talk and about purpose, and I also put it on my podcast, and I can find the link and send to you so you could have a little bit more time on it, because I relate very much to what you're saying. So but what I would say here is that the pursuit of purpose and a special thing kept me for years out of the moment. It kept me in a feeling of dissatisfaction, and that somehow I'd been getting it wrong, because I had purpose lined up with, as I said earlier, like fulfillment and happiness and career success. But what I was missing was that there's a difference. Like, I had purpose lined up to work, what I did, versus this idea of all of it being on purpose. Like that, to live life in the moment, to see where I'm at, and that whatever's in front of me, whatever's on my place is meant for me. And even if it looks hard or scary, or, that there's a way that can be all in service to us. Now, that doesn't mean I don't think you should change your job it doesn't mean any of that, right? But I think that you said it. It's like when I said earlier, I had this habit of mind where I was constantly looking to improve myself, constantly looking at how I could be better, what I could do better, and that habit of mind left me in a constant low hum feeling of dissatisfaction. Of course it did. That's how it works. If I'm constantly pursuing better, then doesn't it make sense that I live in a feeling of not quite good enough? Right? You see the setup of the mind creating that experience of more, I need more. Well, the same is true. The setup of purpose, like that, we're banking that everything we want is in our purpose. Then it makes sense that we live in this sort of angst of not being able to figure it out. Like, that's just how it would be. But what happens is that we miss all the amazing gifts and opportunity that are right here in the right now. We miss the fulfillment that's available because it's right here coming from inside of us. We miss the love and the connection and the joy that's right here, right now, because it's inside of us. It's available at all times. See, I thought it was only available in what I did, if I got what I did right. But that's a misunderstanding. What this understanding shows us is that feeling of fulfillment, of love, of connection, of purpose is inside of us. It's not coming from what we do. It's not coming from the job. It's coming from inside of us. So I think that it's just an opportunity, maybe just to keep encouraging you to keep doing what you're already doing. You can hear, even as you share, that you already see the kind of setup inside yourself. You're already seeing that. And go ahead.
Sorry. Yeah, what happens is, from a lifetime of intellectual defensiveness as a means of protection, because my whole family, your worth was how much you added to the coffers, how clever you are, and how you conform. And everything I've done in a sort of like an underlying drive has been against that, and me ending up, if I were to put a label, like a black sheep, everything which is not what they would like. So I carried their thinking in me. So there's already a less than there. And then what am I? Who am I? What am I capable of? And then one day, it's just do what you're drawn to. And it still hasn't created a work description or anything, but there is an inkling of a clue to where you feel the resonance of energy. And it does, some of it does have the intellectual pursuits or whatever, but and then it adds up to, but what is the purpose of all this? But as you say, inside is that feeling. The feeling is you are adding something, whether you see it or not, or you are doing something. And these voices in the head are definitely not mine to carry.
That's right.
Is a good way to put it. Yeah.
And you just see them as thought. Like, we all have thought. We have habitual thought. We have thought that comes from conditioning. We have thought that's fearful thought, insecure thought, inspiring thought, helpful thought. It's just all thought. And so you just start to see that you don't have to overcome an issue. All that's happening is, in any given moment, you're experiencing your thought in the moment. So in some moments, purpose looks like a problem to you. In other moments, purpose is nowhere on your mind. So again, it's like you start to see, it's like you don't really have an issue with purpose. You just have habitual thought, in a way. And that's not even a problem, because all thought is fluid. And when we understand and have a different relationship to the kinds of thoughts we have, we realize we can have thinking without it having us. We realize that we can get destabilized, but we'll be okay. We'll find our way again. We'll realize that we can get really compelled by fearful, all kinds of gripping thought, but consciousness wakes us up and we realize we're in thought, and then begins to fade. Like, again, no experience is a problem. Some are more uncomfortable than others, but ultimately we're okay no matter what. And everything, the fulfillment, the love, the connection, the well-being is already there within.
Thank you. I think I'll have to listen. Thanks for the lovely recordings, Carolina and Wayne, because I always revisit a lot of the recordings. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Oh,
thanks.
Divyesh, we love you so much. And for us, Barb is sitting in Oregon in the United States, and you are at 4:30 getting up to watch this.
5:30.
5:30 in Australia. And I remember, it still happens to me, is that since I found the principles, and I remember also Barb talking a few times about this, I thought, well, okay, now everything is going to be as I want it. Like, everything is going to get, sorted. right? In the way I think it should be sorted. And then I miss sight of the things that are going really well. So it's like, oh, okay, now I've got a lovely relationship. It's going well. Okay, what next? This is not so good, like my job or whatever. Oh, that's okay. Okay, my daughter, that's not going so I'm constantly, instead of sort of savoring, and it's now completely different in a way, but the bits are still like that. So something is really nice, and then I'm okay, what else needs changing, fixing? Where else do I need to put my purpose? So everything looks like it's perfect, sort of thing. And one of the things I lose sight is of how loved I am. And Barb TED has this beautiful dog. Oh my gosh, this cute
Esmeralda.
and she is, oh, you have to see the face that she looks at TED. She's like, it's complete adoration, and it's mutual, obviously. And so it's those moments where, well, what's your purpose? Like, if you have a dog that looks at you that way, you know, and you feel that love, that is already, the world is sorted for me. Like I haven't even been there to Australia to see you and your dog, and I feel so much love. And I can see that sometimes we miss those moments where things are so beautiful because we quickly think that we need to move into the next thing, that we are some sort of like fixer upper, or you know, or what else. So I don't lose respect for the people that love me, or you know, I mean, I don't know if you feel like that with your beautiful dog, but I think she loves you, no matter what you.
It's not just the little dog is the angel of unconditional love. We also have two little elephants from where I was born in Kenya, which were adopted. The names are Roy and Satao, and they're in the sheltered wildlife. And now one of them has become a big one and been let loose, but with lots of care and love and nurture. They were all orphans, and the mums and dads died in horrible circumstances, but they're all taken care of. But we adopt them, so that's another way. But even I think what has happened since coming into the principles, or related, because there's something that just get drawn to, is spiritual or humanistic psychology, where the underlying base of thinking, consciousness, thought, and mind is the ability to, little by little, it's a nudge to see the love within ourselves and how it translates into a loving relationship with people. Resentments are falling neutral little by little. I mean, little things within change, so the world outside is appearing different, little, with of course a lot of confusion and habitual conditioning and thinking. And in staying in these conversations, there's always a nudge towards what Barb and you and everybody point out towards that. The wisdom is there in the moment, not pre-planned before or carved out. The thing is, I still bring in my lack of trust. And once I remember in your show, it was Joe Bailey, if I'm not mistaken. Oh no, Mark Howard. He said something to the effect, just trust it, have faith in wisdom. Like I needed a simple sentence, like, because my mind would go, yeah, but what is faith? What is, anyway, yeah, sorry. So thanks.
Thank you so much.
Anyone else? Yeah. Oh, I think it's just a really nice, like, I love what you just ended with when, Mark said, just trust, have faith in the wisdom. And, a friend of mine who she's become friends, and she owns a business in Scotland. And she tells the story of when she was doing ropes climbing course, those things that they do, like team events. And she had to scale up a tree, and then they had a wire from tree to tree, and she had to walk across it. And you're completely harnessed in, like you're safe, right? But you're still walking across this wire, and you feel you're trying to carry yourself. And she said how she just got really, really afraid, like really panicked and upset, and was starting to hyperventilate. And they kept telling her, just drop, like the harness would catch her, like just drop, and she couldn't hear it because she was so upset. And then eventually, they yelled loud enough where she eventually, finally heard it. And she said, and then she let go, and it just captured her, carried her, it just like all of her weight. And then she was able to just use her arms lightly and glide across to the other side. And she tells that story is, for her, that's what this sort of, what we can put our money on, where we can put our faith and our certainty, is that place inside of us, that when we let go, that wisdom, that it does carry us. And I think it's just such a beautiful analogy. And it's not dissimilar to when I was talking about having to have that conversation, that my care for that individual would be enough to carry us through, knowing that even if I get a little off balance in a certain situation, I'll find my way again. That balance is inside of us. We can rest in that, knowing that even if things go south, we can come back to them and try again. There's this way of where you start to see, like, oh, I can have faith in the wisdom. See, when I heard that initially, I'd be like, well, I want to sound like, like you can trust things will come through, be in the present, just let go. I'd be like, yeah, but will it come through good enough? Like, will it sound like George Pransky? Because I don't sound like George Pransky. Like all those things, right? And then you start to see, oh no, it really does. The only way that we ultimately learn that we can rest in that we can put our certainty in that, is to do it, is to follow those nudges, to engage in life, to follow the breadcrumbs, to see and start to get an eye for how well we do, to get an eye for our ability to recover, to find a way to connect, that to see that impact and influence and connection comes from where we're coming from, not what we say. So, the idea of having to get the words exactly right starts to make less sense, because you realize, and you can see that when you think about different talks and people you've listened to. It's, you can go somewhere and hear a really slick, polished presentation. It makes you laugh and you enjoy it and it's great. But somebody stands up and speaks from the heart, that does something else. And I remember watching Mark Howard and Kathy Casey speak to a room of coaches one time. And it was their first weekend together. So, the first kind of session, there's this nervous energy, like people are excited, but they're also kind of checking each other out. And then you're also like wondering, about yourself in it all. There was all that kind of energy in the prior day. And then Mark and Kathy taught. And all day long, basically what they said was, it's human to human, soul to soul. And then you point people to the understanding, right? Because that's what these people wanted to do. But throughout the day, all they said is, all we're ever up to in any moment, in any conversation, and anything, is a human to human, soul to soul connection. And after their funny stories, making fun of themselves, sharing mistakes, sharing touching stories, like all of that all day long, but just coming back to, it's human to human, soul to soul. And you can rest in that. And you started to watch the energy in the room shift, like majorly shift. And what I watched and saw happen in the room, the way I would articulate it is, it's like the energy before it was this sort of nervous, questioning, self-doubt, you know. All of a sudden, by the end of their day, this was this calm, solid, and confidence of people saying, I could do that. I could do that. And I remember at the end of that day going, oh, that's the impact I want to have. I want people to walk away from an encounter and think, see more of who they are. Like, right, to see that they can handle life, that they are designed to meet whatever's on their plate, that they have it within them to feel those feelings of love, fulfillment, connection. And that didn't happen by Mark and Kathy being slick and professional and extra, right? It happened because they were real. They weren't doing any extra all day long. And they pointed to the ultimate truth that there's something that happens that's very powerful beyond our words and our behaviors and getting it right. There's this beautiful presence and energy and exchange. And that's the place of magic. You know, again, coming back to it's how I'm showing up, it's where I'm coming from, it's not what I'm saying or doing. And it doesn't guarantee a pretty ride all the time, but it guarantees that, you know, we keep our bearings, we find our way, we rise to the occasion, and we experience more love and connection. Any other comments or questions? Anything anyone wants to share or contribute?
Hi, Barb.
Hi, Claire.
Hi. I've loved what you've had to say. And, you know, it just strikes me that it's just so authentic, isn't it, when you turn up like that without putting the pressure on yourself to be a certain way. Yeah. Which I think, you know, certainly for years, I felt I had to do that. And just in this past year of me being exposed to the principles and, you know, sort of listening to people, bit by bit, that sort of pressure on myself has fallen away. And it is, you just have a totally different relationship with life, don't you? And connection with people, which is just, yeah, it's fantastic. Even at work, you know, which I can, you know, it can be really stressful at times. It's so much more enjoyable, you know. Yeah.
That's lovely. And isn't that always the surprise, right? Who knew that taking things off our mind, letting go of these idealized images of who we think we should be, that all of a sudden we would start to naturally fall into and tap into this amazing essence of who we are. You know, and that authenticity, that just realness, that humanness is a part of what makes us so amazing versus trying to course correct it and overcome it. Like, no, like be it, be human. How, you really can't help it, you know, anyway, just let's, right? You know, but somehow I thought I could control it more. Yeah, that's beautiful, Claire.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Barb, can I ask you, what did you do before you sort of got into the principles and things? Because I'm assuming you just do coaching now. Is that?
Yeah, I do consulting and coaching, and I do some workshops, and But I've been coaching since like the late 90s. So, and I did that whether I was inside a company or out. I've had my own business a couple times prior, but right before this one, I was the head of global talent management, leadership, all learning, executive development inside a global company, and I lived in Paris. So all of my career has been in personal, professional, and organizational development. So yeah, I've been inside of companies. I've been sort of every level inside of a company, including the person at the top responsible for it all. Not the whole company, but you know, the function. And yeah, so but I've loved it. By the way, in the midst of that, I've also worked in a furniture store. I've been a massage therapist. I've waited tables a number of times. You know, like, and that wasn't like when I was in my 20s. So it's when I was in my 30s at times, you know, like trying to, my path sounds, I think anytime we talk about it, it sounds like it just rolled out like this golden carpet, you know, but no, it was fraught with a failed business. It was not knowing who I was, what I was meant to do, feeling horrible about myself, and then working in a furniture store, you know, like it was a very crooked, even though in a way now I see the thread of it all. Like you see the intent and the beauty of it all. In the midst of it, there was some hard times for sure, and a lot of self-doubt at times.
Oh, it's so inspiring.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Claire.
Well, thank you, everybody, so much. Thank you for being here and for listening and engaging with me. And Carolina and Wayne, thank you for what you're doing with this group and for following that original nudge and then seeing this amazing momentum that has happened over the last year, and for just sharing yourself so generously. Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much for being
Thank
here.
you.
I there's something I heard you say from the beginning, and every time I hear you talk, Barb, and it's permission to feel so loved, permission to realize that we are so loved. Not just me, that we are all so loved. That you can build a case about why you shouldn't be loved, or, you know, like, well, my father left when I was a child, or, you know, or I was left by my parents, or, you know, like Wayne had to go into different foster care homes, or, and you start thinking, well, okay, that's why I okay, there's something wrong with me. I shouldn't be loved. And while you're trying to sort some puzzle that is not here nor there, really, you don't give yourself permission to actually be loved, no matter what, unless it's the dog, because the dog has unconditional love. And what I've seen hearing you talk, Barb, is that you realize that there's no reason why you shouldn't be loved. Well, we all shouldn't be loved, but we are so loved. So thank you. You're an absolute gift. You have certainly changed my life, and I know many people's lives. So thank you so much, and it's a dream come true to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your beautiful words. Thank you.
So we are going to put all your details here so people can find you. But just in case, where can people find you, Barb?
Yeah, you can go to barbarapatterson.com. And there you'll see access to my blog, but also to the podcast, Real Business, Real Lives. And you can follow me on LinkedIn or Instagram as well. But yeah.
Brilliant. And do, because your podcast and there's the TED Talk that I'm going to put as well. And so yeah, so it's all. And I need to go dig and find, I think it's 2014 or something around there, the original one that I keep going back to.
Yeah.
And so thank you.
Thank you.
Next week, we're going to be also on Wednesday at 7:30 here, BST. That it's British summertime in the UK.
Yep.
Yeah. So, and we're going to have Dr. Giles P Croft here back with us. And so Giles, we trained together with Giles at some point, and then we became really good friends.
Yep.
And if you have been or heard or go back and listen to that episode, we pretty much laughed nonstop from the beginning to the end. And since then, he has created something really special and beautiful, and he's coming back to share it with us. So please join us to uncover what he's created, and he wants to share it and talk about how he came to do that. So thank you very much, and we'll see you next week. Thank you, Barb.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.